sense.
The second question relates to what I guess you call the next stage. After realizing that I'm awareness, is the conducting of experiment to increase the probability of recognizing that consciousness is universal. Can you give me a small example of an experiment?
Many examples. It relates to 5 realms, if you will. The way we think, the way we feel our body, the way we perceive the world, the way we interact with human beings and with living beings, and the way we act in the world. So, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we perceive, the way we interact, the way we act. In fact, it corresponds to 5 types of yoga. The way we act is karma yoga. The way we interact is the yoga of love. The way we think is the yoga of knowledge, etc. So the way we feel is, let's say, the hatha yoga or some form like that. The way we perceive, it could be the yoga of beauty or the yoga of the senses. But so, for instance, the exercise I was mentioning, it is about changing the way we perceive the world and the way we feel also our body. So these exercises, when I notice that I feel separate, to that was feeling as usual, to make a deliberate attempt to eliminate this sense of separation, to switch to the non-separate mode. That has to do with how I feel and also how I perceive. They are both kind of intertwined, right? Because, in fact, the sense of separation is also a feeling that I am here. So it's difficult to dissociate both. But to dissolve the feeling I am here, we can use two elements. First, to look at the feeling I am here and know that I am in fact the space in which this feeling appears. And the other way is to project I am already there. So I'm not just here. You see, these are two aspects. Now, the way we think, every time you catch yourself red-handed, thinking of yourself as a separate person, clarify that. Ask yourself, what did I mean by I? Did I mean my car? Did I mean my body? Did I mean my consciousness? You see? And then, if I meant my consciousness, the one who perceives, the one who thinks, the one who loves, the one who understands, if I meant my consciousness, well, I know that I have no evidence that this one is separate. So then I drop the separation concept of it, and I act. Then in the actions, that's the other form, to act as if consciousness was universal, was the reality of everything, of the mountain, of the events in my life. So that the universe is my friend and not my adversary, my enemy. And finally, how we interact with others, to whenever we are interacting, to interact from the assumption that the consciousness there, with whom I am interacting, to whom I am speaking, or to whom I am doing things, is the same as me. That I'm talking to myself, doing things to myself, etc. So when you have the totality of these 5 categories, 5 ways of cutting the carrot, of these 5 categories of conducting experiments, you will realize that almost every moment in our life is an opportunity to conduct an experiment. And the idea is that, what we have to understand is that the moment we conduct the experiment, we are in the position of wisdom. Because the moment we challenge the separation, we are not separated. So wisdom is not something to be reached in the distant future. Wisdom is something that we can reach here and now at every moment. And then we get established in it when our life becomes a quasi-constant experimentation in consciousness, if you will. That's the idea.
Thank you. There seems to be a few of those that I'm really unsure, and it strikes me as that what I could do is, I think you say, if posed the question in this situation, how would I react? If I was universal conscious, if consciousness was universal, how would it act? And see what answer comes up, and then act based on that.
Yeah.
And just sort of keep testing it.
Yeah.
So when somebody cuts me off driving, it's okay. If consciousness is universal, how would it act?
Yeah. And it translates into the small aspects of our life. I was telling at the table the other day a story with my teacher when we were buying food at the farmers' market in Nice. And it was past 12 p.m. and the market was about to close. And there was this lady selling melons, and she had a lot of melons left. And my teacher asked her how much a melon, and she said, let's say, $1 a piece. And he says, okay, I give you $5, you give me 6 melons? And she said, sure, and she had a big smile. So, and then we went away, and he said, see, Francis, a good deal is one that makes both parties happy. You see, it's a small thing in life, but you see, it has remained with me, because even a small thing contains a lot of truth and of love, because he understood the situation of the lady, right? And she, melons, you cannot keep them forever, and they were just ripe, perfect. and she was very happy to get rid of those, and he was happy to, I guess, to teach me a lesson.
Thank you.
But it was a case when, he was talking to consciousness. He was doing that. He was putting himself in the situation of this lady. You see, he knew he was making her happy, and at the same time giving her the elegance of making us a gift. You see, it was very beautiful.
As a follow-up, would you say then that running any of these experiments could give us the resolution to just about every problem, or when we feel stuck or confused, except for maybe skill or technical expertise?
Well, if we act, we think, we behave, we interact impersonally in our lives, the Red Sea is going to open. We don't know where it's going to open, but it's going to open. and it's going to open at the right place and at the right time. So that's the real nature of the experiment. It's the opening of the Red Sea. You see what I mean by this metaphor, right? That solutions will be found, whether we find them, whether the universe around us finds them for us, solutions will happen. Because the nature of the experiment is what happens when we act impersonally, or when we think, feel, interact, etc., impersonally. What happens then? We cannot say ahead of time, we cannot know what is going to happen, because we'll be always surprised. But what happens then will be part of the accumulation of evidence.
So it sounds like one of the tricks is to stay open, to just continue to stay open to...
But what is important also is to do it not for the sake of finding a solution, but for the sake of truth. And that's a very important point. Because that would be a total misunderstanding to try to use what is said here as a technique, as a New Age technique to reach something, because then you would be disappointed. What is said here is just to reach happiness, not to reach things, not to reach events, just to reach peace. And the goal has to be just that. Not to get money, not to get a job, not to find a solution to this or that problem. Because then it's not going to work. So that's a cautionary statement which is extremely important. We are not in the New Age business of manipulating the universe here.